Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to the channel. And it looks like Xbox Game Pass continues to succeed when it comes to these big AAA releases. This has been a constant discussion within the game community and whether or not these big AAA games can have success launching directly into Xbox Game Pass. And it seems like time after time they do just that. So we will go over all of that today, plus some other Xbox news, as the Xbox Series has gotten off to a very good start. And then we're going to be talking about PlayStation. They do have that state of play going up today, though this is actually being recorded before that, so do keep that in mind. We'll talk about that one tomorrow. But today, it does sound like a big PlayStation game might be making its way over to PC. And this one is a little bit of a surprise, just considering it didn't really release all that long ago. So we're going to talk about that one as well. Today, though, we're going to be starting off with a bit of a weird one, because apparently it sounds like Warner Brothers might be making a Super Smash Bros. Style of game that features all sorts of Warner Brothers IP. This includes apparently Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, Tom and Jerry, Batman, Fred Flintstone, Mad Max, Harry Potter, and Ron might possibly be in this game, as well as Johnny Bravo. Now, this rumor first appeared over on Reddit, and right away that is a big red flag. These rumors don't always end up being accurate, but there was actually a little bit more to this one, because Jeff Grubb from VentureBeat actually supported this rumor by saying, yes, it is real. However, it's not being developed by NetherRealms as that original rumor states. Jeff Grubb does claim that this is a real thing, though, and he does give more details about this game. Based off what he's been hearing, it sounds like this will be a cheaper style of game. It's not going to have a major budget or anything like that. It could be a free-to-play title. It will also have future characters that will be sold as DLC, and apparently even LeBron James might make it to this game being a DLC fighter. LeBron James, of course, is in the new Space Jam movie, which is owned by Warner Brothers, and actually that is the perfect example of just how many IP they have. They tried to shoehorn a lot of their IP into that new Space Jam movie, kind of unsuccessfully, I might add, but they do have a lot of franchises that they could work with making a Smash Brothers style of game. Nickelodeon is actually making an attempt at this right now as well with Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl, and well, I guess we might have a Warner Brothers style game as well. So I guess if you ever wanted a fighting game with characters like Harry Potter, It, and maybe even LeBron James, I guess we can watch him lose in the finals in a whole new way. Either way, definitely an interesting but strange game to keep an eye out for here. Moving on, though, we need to talk about Xbox here, because Microsoft did reveal their fiscal year report for Q1 of 2022, and Xbox had some major growth here. Yeah, so all this is year over year, and the total gaming revenue grew by 16%, while Xbox content and services up by 2%. The big one, though, and this one is very impressive to say the least, but Xbox hardware revenue grew by 166%, driven by ongoing demand for the Xbox Series X and S. In fact, they said that they were able to ship more Xbox Series X and S consoles than expected, even as demand continues to exceed supply. And that right there is the thing. We are still dealing with these chip shortages, and I mean, it's just been a weird generation where the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, they had this incredibly high initial demand, but they can't meet it because they just can't produce enough consoles fast enough. Both the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X has been dealing with this all generation long, but they are still selling at a record-breaking pace. The Xbox Series X is the fastest-selling Xbox console, and the PlayStation 5 is just the fastest-selling console, period. So it's been so impressive seeing what's been happening this generation so far, and with Xbox specifically, I mean, they haven't even really started putting out their big first-party titles. I remember when Halo Infinite was delayed, much of the community kind of made a big deal about it, thinking the Xbox Series X was doomed, but here we are, and this console is still selling out, and we haven't even seen Halo yet. So really, when they start to release all of their big first-party games, such as Starfield, Halo Infinite, Forza Horizon 5, Fable, and all these other games, it's just going to prolong the success of the Xbox Series even further. It's really amazing to think about just how much of a turnaround Xbox has been this generation compared to that Xbox One. I've said it in the past, but I'll say it again. Xbox has a bright future, and there's so many reasons for that, whether that be their first-party studios, whether that be their approach to backwards compatibility, or even with Xbox Game Pass. Now, interestingly enough, they did not give Xbox Game Pass numbers here. We still have not seen an official statement on how many subscribers Xbox Game Pass has, but we did actually get some news from a big AAA game that recently released directly into Xbox Game Pass, being Back 4 Blood. Now, Back 4 Blood is the spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead, and it was a highly anticipated title that released directly into Xbox Game Pass. And, well, guess what? This game launched to a ton of success. They did reveal that it's already reached 6 million players in just its first couple weeks. And that's already impressive, but one thing that's noteworthy here is that Back 4 Blood has actually been performing very well in terms of box charts as well. Over in the UK, Back 4 Blood actually debuted at the number 2 spot and number 4, including all platforms. So it's actually had some success when it comes to physical retail sales as well. And then to just kind of top it off, it's also been the number 1 most played game on Xbox, beating out games such as Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Fortnite. So that is extremely impressive as well. Back 4 Blood has gotten off to a great overall start, and this is exactly what you want to see with a game launching directly into Xbox Game Pass. Now, that's kind of the thing with this game, though, is because we're seeing it have success in so many different ways. It's having success in terms of retail, it's having success on Xbox Game Pass, it's having success on Xbox, and it's also having success on PC. It is being estimated by Steam Spy that it already has between 500,000 and 1 million owners on Steam as of this moment. And again, that's very impressive for a game that launched directly into Xbox Game Pass. Some people might think that if you launch directly in Xbox Game Pass, people aren't also going to buy the game, but it doesn't exactly work that way. With these multi-platform games such as Back 4 Blood, it actually gives a game like this more recognition and more publicity. With so many people playing it, word of mouth travels fast, and we are seeing that here with Back 4 Blood. And you know what? This isn't the first time we've seen this happen with a big AAA game this year, for that matter. We also saw this happen with Outriders earlier this year, which had a lot of success early on. We also saw similar things with Marvel's Avengers when that came to Game Pass last month. It saw a big boost, and now, once again, we are seeing that with Back 4 Blood. So I think we are starting to see that these big AAA games, they can release to some success with the help of Xbox Game Pass. No, it's not going to be necessarily for every game, but I think especially when it comes to these multiplayer style of games, automatically building a fan base like right out of the gate with Xbox Game Pass, I'm sure that's a big help. And just after that, let word of mouth carry it. Kind of back to what I was alluding to a moment ago, though, I think with Xbox Game Pass and Xbox Series, we really are starting to see Xbox make a big comeback this generation. I say that their future is really bright, but I also think PlayStation and Nintendo's future is really bright as well. What I think that I'm most happy about right now is just seeing all 3 of them succeed. This is exactly what you want to see in the game industry because, as I always like to say, competition breeds excellence. I love seeing the success of all 3 of these platforms as they push each other to be better throughout this generation. I really think this is going to be a really special generation for all 3 platforms. Let's go ahead and talk about PlayStation, though, as one thing that they've been doing here recently is bringing some of their PlayStation 4 games over to PC. So far, they've done that with Detroit Become Human. They've done it with Death Stranding, Horizon Zero Dawn, and now we're also seeing Uncharted as well as God of War head over to PC. They even acquired Nixxes, which specializes in PC ports, so they are taking PC games very serious. One thing that all of these games kind of have in common, though, is that they're older PlayStation 4 games. So far, they haven't really released any of their newer games on PC, but, well, that might actually be changing sometime here soon, as it looks like Sackboy: A Big Adventure might be the next game heading over to PC. Yeah, this one was a little bit of a surprise considering Sackboy: A Big Adventure is not even a year old yet. This actually was a launch title for the PlayStation 5, though it's also available on the PlayStation 4. With that said, this is one of their smaller releases. It's not necessarily as big as games such as Returnal or Demon's Souls, which also released within the last year, but still, this is a newer PlayStation game that might be heading over to PC. So what's happening here is that a new Steam database listing was spotted, codenamed Still PC, which makes mention of Marmalade content. Now, that right there is important because if you remember right, there was this massive NVIDIA GeForce Now leak that revealed a lot of different PC games that was previously unannounced. And this leak did mention several PlayStation games that was possibly going to be heading over to PC sometime soon, including God of War, which has already been confirmed, and then also Project Marmalade, which was later revealed to be Sackboy: A Big Adventure. And now here we are seeing them mention Marmalade content in this Steam database listing, so when you put two and two together, this does suggest this could be Sackboy: A Big Adventure. And if this does indeed happen, this could end up being a big shift from what we've seen PlayStation do in the past with their PC titles. This could be something that PlayStation does more of in the future, where they bring their games out to PC maybe a year or so after that PlayStation console release. Now, I've said in the past, I don't think that they'll ever do day and date like Xbox does, but we could see certain games head over to PC maybe a year and a half later after that PlayStation console release. And I do think with Sackboy: Big Adventure, it does make sense. This is a smaller scope game that was developed by a third-party studio, being Sumo Digital. So I think out of all games that PlayStation has, this one does make sense to come over to PC sooner rather than later. And I've kind of said this in the past, but this is a good thing for PlayStation to do. Something that fans really need to keep in mind is that games are really expensive, especially those big first-party games that PlayStation likes to make, such as Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2. These are very expensive games to make, and by putting some games over on PC, this is only going to make the PlayStation business more money so they can continue to make risks on big AAA games like that. So that's why putting games like this on PC is a good thing for PlayStation gamers, so do keep that in mind. But it will be interesting to see if this becomes a trend going forward, where a game might be heading over to PC only a year after that console release. Of course, we got to see if this is even confirmed in the first place, but definitely something worth keeping an eye on. Now, speaking of PlayStation, let's talk about Kena Bridge of Spirits, which is a game that launched on a PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and PC last month. And, well, this ended up turning out to be a really good game. Obviously, this is a game that looks absolutely stunning, but it's also just a good game in general. And the good news here is that Ember Labs did confirm that they've already recouped its development cost, and that Sony is happy with how successful Kena Bridge of Spirits has been so far. And that right there is great news because, I mean, I think that this is a very promising studio, which we'll get back to here in just a moment. But a lot of fans probably don't even realize this, but Ember Labs is actually a really small team of just about 15 developers. I mean, when you look at this game and those Pixar-like visuals, it would be easy to assume that this is coming from a big AAA studio, but this is actually, in fact, coming from just a small studio of about 15 developers. So to see Ember Labs have this much success early on is definitely great to hear. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Ember Labs next. Are they going to expand into a bigger studio after the success of Kena Bridge of Spirits? And for that matter, I wouldn't be surprised at all if different publishers take interest in Ember Labs after seeing just how good Kena Bridge of Spirits turned out to be. We have seen a lot of acquisitions here in recent years, and I think with Kena Bridge of Spirits, they might have put themselves on the radar of plenty of publishers out there. I wouldn't be surprised at all if different publishers picked up the phone to see if they were interested in an acquisition. For that matter, Sony would make an obvious target here just because they have worked together already, and one thing that Sony has done in the past is acquire studios that they've worked with. Now, I'm not saying that any of this will happen, but I really am happy to see Kena Bridge of Spirits have success early on. Let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, as it stands, do you think Nintendo Switch Online plus Expansion Pack is worth it? This is an upgraded tier on Nintendo Switch Online for $50 that includes Nintendo 64 games as well as Sega Genesis titles, but is that enough to justify the premium price? And well, the vast majority of you all do not think it's worth it, with 89% of you saying no, while only 4% of you said yes. That is a little bit of a shock that only 4% of you said yes. Now, I can kind of understand that though, just because it is a $30 increase over the standard Nintendo Switch Online, which includes Super Nintendo games as well as old NES titles. When they first announced this expansion pack, I thought it was actually going to be about a $10 increase, being about $30 a year, but to see it be a $30 increase, that was a bit of a surprise. So it's kind of easy to see why that didn't exactly resonate with the community. But then to just kind of top it off, the actual Nintendo 64 emulation at launch has had some issues, to say the least, whether that be with input lag, graphical issues, as well as its online multiplayer. It has been facing plenty of criticism since it first launched. So that definitely hasn't helped with fan reception. So with that in mind, what's some things that they could do with Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack to justify the price? And I think that there's a few different things that they could do here. Obviously, just fixing that Nintendo 64 emulator would probably go a long way with the community. They could also just decrease the price and just keep everything as is, or they could try to bring other emulators to the service as well. Maybe Game Boy and Game Boy Advance, and then maybe even GameCube games. Now that would be absolutely massive if they were to announce GameCube games heading over to Nintendo Switch Online. Maybe if they were to do things like that, plus fixing the Nintendo 64 emulator, then maybe the community would be a little bit less hesitant on that Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.